focus in on sort of early Buddhist texts and sutras and so forth are going to stress nonviolence, but those are not the only lens by which to understand contemporary Buddhist societies, which, after all, they're not all, becoming, monks and ascetics. They're organizing Buddhist kingdoms and engaging in Buddhist wars. And this is a totally normal historical thing that is just like any other.
Really? I never heard about the Great Buddhist Wars of 2025. Have you ever read Dhammapada, which is the sayings of the Buddha? I know you haven't.
I mean, I owned it as a teenager. I read most of it at the time.
Oh, really?
This was decades ago.
I could give boilerplate Buddhism.
Do you think
basically the idea that there is no self.
have you considered Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior, and you can find out that identity in Jesus Christ? Wonderful. Okay, Mark, do you think that, you would agree certainly that, culture plays a role, right? Broadly speaking, to start with, right? And the degree of, violence exhibited by, people, population, right? And I guess the argument, and I think some of this is true, right? I don't know to what extent that, culture is also sort of influenced by what is written in, some of the sort of foundational texts of the religions, right, that influence them. So I think, and I do think that
Claire Bear,
what people say about how the Buddhist texts are especially sort of emphasize peace, and so on. I think has that influence. So it's hard to measure to what degree.
Title. Why are you even run this type of vulgar title, honey?
honey bear.
I was gonna say
I'm not your honey bear.
That was I didn't want to jump Well, this is a secondary point, so maybe you go why don't you respond to that? I'll bring this up.
I mean, it depends on what Buddhist texts you're talking about. I mean, Buddhist texts are not exhausted by the first millennium BC. I mean, Buddhism in Japan had a fairly militaristic history, and I don't think it's exactly fair to describe it as characterized by nonviolence. And one of the sort of more classic arguments against it, or rather criticisms of it, is that it sort of lacked a super deep ethical component. And I think a huge number of, say, for example, Japanese, I don't want to say kamikaze pilots, because actually I think that is not a good case for this, or a good fit for this, but, Japanese soldiers in the army viewed their sort of duties as stemming from a Buddhist origin. I mean, same thing with the sort of general feudal structure, the belief in sort of reincarnation and determination and duty. I don't think there was a super notable legacy of Buddhist pacifism there that is qualitatively different from, say, Christian pacifism of various strands in Europe at the same, during the same time in the same eras.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's okay. I'll give you the Japanese one for the most part. Although I think even there, there's some sort of history of not exactly pacifism, but well, anyway, whatever. I'll get okay. Look, the other thing I was going to say was that I think the impression I have about Buddhists being Buddhism having peaceful influences is partly, I think, due to the fact that in most countries, actually, there's very few countries where there are many countries where Buddhism is common but not the dominant religion, right? So they don't have that opportunity to sort of take over the political apparatus and then institute repressive violence against other religions. Maybe that's why.
And I'm also not denying that there's a ton of Buddhist pacifism in countries that they do administer. I'm not yet convinced that it's notably different from other religions.
I just suspect, I really don't know, we'd have to look at the stats or something, but I suspect it's had a sort of a benign influence, right, relative to other religions.
That may be the case. Go ahead.
I was also going to say, I actually also believe this about Hinduism. Of course, it would be
yeah, no, so do I.
Yeah.
For example, it doesn't have a sort of exclusivist soteriology. So, it's not really built into the theology to be afraid of other religions, because they're not necessarily endangering your mortal soul in the same way.
Exactly.
That said, I mean, one of the problems with looking into early Buddhist scriptures in order to unlock, the soul of modern Buddhists is that Buddhist scriptures don't really scale to an entire society. Like most Buddhists living in most Buddhist countries, they're not becoming monks and ascetics. They're not wearing the orange robes and carrying, mendicant bowls or whatever, and meditating a huge amount. Rather, it's mostly just a kind of somewhat ordinary generic religion to them, where they they mostly ignore it, and then they have personal problems, and so they pray and offer sacrifices to the Buddha to grant them favors, and it's just like the sort of weird, poorly defined generic religion, almost like any other, where the doctrines are less important than the ritual.
I put some links in the chat, and I think what you're saying is ridiculous. If you compare the actual texts of the Dhammapada and the Quran, you will see a massive difference in intelligence, in understanding, comprehension, culture, etc. And Mark, what you're saying is just, it's dribble.
Well, the thing I actually just said is that the right place to go to understand contemporary Buddhist societies is not the Dhammapada or any of the other, early Pali texts. It's to look at, essentially what they're doing and what, how most Buddhist people in a Buddhist society who are not actually trying very hard to, forsake most of their desires, but are actually living completely normal, lives full of desires, just like we are, and who treat treat the Buddha as essentially a god to be propitiated. That's where you want to go.
No, that's not where I want to go. I want to actually read the text. I want to know what the texts are telling me. What's in the books? Because I can live in Chicago and read Quran and Dhammapada and say, you know what? Dhammapada is a hell of a lot better book than Quran. It's way better. Like 100,000 times better. The Quran is written by an illiterate schmuck in the desert who can barely pull anything together. It's one of the worst books you've ever read. It's stupid beyond belief. You read Dhammapada and you're like, wow, this is some really well formulated psychology here about how to live your best life. The Quran doesn't do that for you.
I mean, I agree with much of what you said, in that I like the Dhammapada a whole lot, and I find it touching in a lot of ways, whereas I don't have that kind of relationship with the Quran at all. I'm just very unimpressed by the latter, but that doesn't touch on my point at all that I just made.
No, I think you don't. I think the Western understanding of ahimsa or nonviolence is wrong. It's an incorrect interpretation of what nonviolence is meant to be in Hinduism, Buddhism, Sikhism, Jainism. War is very much a part of these religions because you have to resort to war when nothing else is possible. You have no other choices, right? But the question is, what kind of a war should it be? What kind of a purpose should it have? It should be virtuous. It has to be restrained. You cannot harm women and children. You cannot. If you go to the text like Mahabharata and stuff, they've specified what kind of arrows can be used and what kind of arrows you should not use. Because cruelty to the opponent is forbidden. They go to enormous level of detail, and you should not fight a war after dusk in the evening, because that is when the enemy has to sleep. There are rules like that. There's also things about animal rights in Buddhism. But the point is,
hi, Anne. I know you're a skinny little thing, but
probably not.
when I came up with this room title, I was thinking about some of the fattest and dumbest people on Clubhouse. You may be one of the dumbest, but you're not the fattest, so at least you got that going for you.
Right. There is violence. See, all these religions have had their own share of violence. My point is, the difference with Islam.
I roasted Monica so hard today in Chillism. Oh, it was so much fun. I wish you were there to see all the chat. I just kept calling her pig, 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 pig.
You all have to trust their gut. If you're fat, then you can't trust your gut. So those people are really extra retarded, the fat people. But I want to hear about Monica.
Yeah, there's nothing to say. She's just such a weak individual who kept trying to get me thrown out of the room. I got thrown out of the children's room 6 times today by 6 different accounts. I roasted them relentlessly for being stupid beyond belief and wasting their time on a Sunday. Because it is really the dumbest room. It's just people trying to come up with thoughts and ideas who are like bad. I understand everybody wants to be a good public speaker, and that's what a lot of people are trying to do, but nobody's actually studying public speaking. Nobody's actually. It's just.
They're not even public because these people wouldn't even talk like that.
Anyways, they're just worthy of being roasted, and Tali and Nathan are just two really stupid people beyond belief.
Well, Nathan is. Oh.
I'm not saying that they're not like somewhat nice, and somewhat chill, but I'm just saying that it's just obvious that room is like a toxic mind virus that just can't
100%.
quit. Yeah, it just
That's
kind
the perfect
yeah.
toxic mind virus. That's exactly what that room is.
It shows you how bad ideas can stay alive in the mind's eye and how it persists and how it's a zombie that just won't die because there's like I don't know. People are. I mean, I'm not. I didn't do. I'm just saying people are just acting like school stopped. Whether they stopped at high school or stopped at college, it's just like they stopped being students, and now they're just engaged in useless discourse and dopamine creation, and it's pathetic.
I don't know how people stay in there every day for like 10 hours straight. Like I can't. I have to be in there like very little. I cannot be in there longer than 20 minutes. Otherwise, I can feel that, like, I don't know.
It's really stupid. That's why I say just film. I mean, that's why I film everything because there is absolutely no point in me wasting my time unless I'm creating something out of it. Scraping. I mean, something. But I
and
just
the intelligent
shocked.
people that were actually in utilitarianism, they left the app. Like Huey. Remember Huey the goat?
Oh, like he was a really high. Listen, nobody is high IQ.
For that room.
No, even in that room, he's still a schmuck too. I saw his stupid book.
The smartest one in that room.
He sounds good. That's it. But he's still an idiot. Trust me.
I like him.
Everybody's. You can like whoever you want, but I mean.
I like Lion.
Oh yeah, super piece of shit. Dangerous piece of shit. Stupid piece of shit.
He's the real Jew,
Oh yeah, he's really
That's
the
not true,
real
by the
Jew.
way.
Descendant of slaves pulled out of west coast of Africa, driving a truck, telling us that he knows everything. That he's better and smarter than all of us, and that he says that he literally says that he is the N-word solution.
Of course.
That he's the N-word and he's the solution. That's what he says. He thinks he's the solution.
Mark actually might be
He's an
solution.
angry,
Have
low
you seen that
IQ,
movie,
stupid person. Ooh, you guys had a falling out? Damn.
I've been annoyed lately. The last couple of times I've been thinking about stuff. My solution always gets ruined because of the cardinality stuff. Like with induction, I was like, oh, it seems like there's more worlds with 20, more than 20 suns than there are with 20. And then someone will be like, oh, the infinity suns are the same, so you can't use that to justify induction. Or if I want to say, like, in more of the worlds, this epistemic practice gets true beliefs than this other epistemic practice, so we can use that to justify our epistemic practices. Like, oh, no, the infinity worlds, they're all the same size, so fuck you.
It's been excuse me. In general, there's not going to be. I mean, first of all, there aren't really a lot of super successful attempts at trying to justify induction to begin with. And second of all, sadly, if there are going to be any, they're going to be based on something much more nuanced and finer grained, mere cardinality.
Yeah, I'm just saying. I keep having these hopes of solving problems, and the infinity stuff keeps fucking me up, dude. It's like this, Sasquatch, this evil Sasquatch that follows me around and fucks my ideas up.
Yeah, it kind of affects everything.
Like, the whole idea that I had of, okay, listen, certain practices work well in a wide variety of situations. One that works pretty well is, checking if stuff is right. That's going to work in a large swath of situations. Whereas smashing your head with hammers is not going to work in a wide swath of situations.
I don't even know what he's talking
So
about
we can
anymore.
just like know that a priori, and then use that to justify certain practices. Like no, the amount of possible worlds where you smash your head and get true beliefs is just as big as the world where you just curiously check stuff. Rip.
Yeah, but look at how Marvel comic books, use the Infinity Stones. It's like a state of consciousness. So, I mean, I don't even know what you're talking about with induction and infinity or eternity. I mean, these are just like words for pondering and for awe's sake to realize just how insignificant you are in terms of the grand scale of the universe. But, I mean, if the universe created the earth and you came out of the earth, you are essentially, the universe creating you so you can look back and wonder at it all or observe it because the universe is that intelligent to create you.
Bro, the way you started out that was, look how this relates to the Infinity Stones. The Infinity Stones are just states of consciousness. I was like, bro, you're just like popping off. Like the Infinity Stones have nothing to do with infinity. This is me and Mark are talking about. And then even if we talk about the Infinity Stones, they're stones. They're not states of consciousness.
I'm saying it's a joke, meaning that like you can snap your fingers and achieve whatever your will desires. So it's just it's all a joke. It's called the cosmic joke. It's the universal joke. The point.
I temporarily changed the subject and told Mark that recently I've been trying stuff out to justify, epistemic practices or induction, and using like possible worlds and like numbers of possible worlds to justify them. And they keep getting fucked over by the fact that infinities are like, it's hard to compare sizes with infinities basically. But
if you don't mind, I only have a few minutes. I mean,
if you want to pop off about Islam and women, you can pop off, sir.
Now, I just want to know what your position is first. Well, what does Islam get right about women?
Just generally, it's general perspective, right?
Like what?
Yeah, just its overall attitude, positions.
Overall attitude for women.
Don't you know that it's a facetious title? It's a troll title.
Oh, okay.
I guess you guys don't know who Phoenix is. You should first find out who Phoenix is if you don't know.
Well, I know he doesn't know how to spell.
He's a fellow anti-Islam critic.
I am. I have deep-seated hatred for Islam, especially when it comes to this particular topic, especially with the child diddling stuff, especially for females. That for me is just a bit too much. And I have enough. Actually, you know what? Since you brought up about women, do you know that I got a PDF, 20-page PDF right here with me on marital rape in Islam and how it's not considered marital rape because they don't have a concept of marital rape. Because once you're married to the woman, he's your property. She's your property. You can do whatever you want with her. So I can even show you that. It's pretty messed up.
That's just
She's your wife, dude. She's not someone else's wife.
That's just Islamophobic. That's Islamophobic reframing.
Is it Islamic reframing if Muhammad himself said it? Like, if you, so there is a hadith that actually says that if the wife refrains entry of her husband for any reason, the angels will curse day and night to her.
Oh, hi, princess.
This has been given precedence to actually show
You might be one of the fattest, dumbest women and catfishes on the app as well. So, but this room wasn't created with you in mind. I wasn't thinking about you when I created it. I was thinking about Monica.
Indicates that marital rape is allowed, although it may be.
Yeah, marital rape is totally allowed, and it's not. But also, what's worse,
You hear that, Princess? If you get married to a Muslim, I mean, I know you are a widow of a Muslim, but
in Islam, it makes it quite clear that
did he ever rape you?
even a girl in a cradle,
Because if you refused his advances,
like literally just married off,
you're not allowed to do that.
it's pretty
Apparently,
messed up.
you have to submit
Once you study Islamic
to the will of your man's
hadith and,
penis.
the sayings of the Prophet, I mean, the
Told my
Quran
cousin
says
that you
can
call
marry
me a
up to prepubescent
catfish,
girls. And you can
and she
marry,
said I'm the
have
opposite of a
divorce and sex
catfish.
with prepubescent girls. It's 65 verse 4 of the Quran.
I'm actually a catfish. You know, I'm a catfish
You can bang a
because I
9-year-old,
post photos
or,
of me from when I'm like 21. I literally have like a photo of me on my dating app or something. I have a full head of hair.
Why am I a
Now I'm
god?
like a fat old dad bod. I'm bald.
God says that that's what you do. Why would you argue with God? He knows better.
Because you believe in fitra, right?
I need to get some new
And my fitra
photos
is to go against your God. What are you
pretty
gonna do
soon
about
and
that?
like get a new dating profile with like updated photos. So
That's
so when you go out on a date, they're like, where did all your hair go?
No, but my fitra is not to bang a 9 or a person in a cradle. That's my fitra. So if I'm going against my fitra that God has given me, then I'm going what? Allah's contradicting himself? He's a schizophrenic or some shit? Like, well, what's the point of actually bringing a quagmire into an intellect? This is what we call an intellectual quagmire, where you're saying my fitra is this, but I'm saying what my fitra is because that's not
Oh,
my
and
fitra.
I want to play through this Monica clip that I have. It's
It's
kind of
not to
funny.
bang little girls.
she had a blow up on me 2 days ago.
65
Let me
verse
see if
4
I can
of the
find the
Quran.
profile.
Surah Al-Talaq verse 4 if you want more specific.
The roast of Monica the Clown. Okay, listen to this. Sarah replayed this. Sarah Sama. I don't know who that is. It's only 3 minutes long. She roasts me. She has like a breakdown. It's coming. Oh, that was Princess here for a moment. Isn't that funny? Their house got in trouble because I was recording it. Is that just fake news? I don't think that what Monica's saying is even real. I think she's full of shit. She's claiming that because I recorded chillism, their house got in trouble. It's like typical Monica bullshit. She's just a stupid fat person.
You're allowed to it's in the terms of conditions. It says that you're allowed to record, you're just not allowed to use it as commercial commercial use.
Oh, like so I can't create an advertisement
Yeah.
or publish it somehow. But I mean,
Yeah.
just live streaming myself in
Like
my
what
office.
happens on Clubhouse stays on Clubhouse, essentially.
Yeah, but that's so stupid because that's like saying that they're going to launch 100 lawsuits every day against people that just record
Right,
everything.
but they can use our voices and everything for commercial use and sell to third parties. So like, yeah, that works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They capture everything. You get nothing out of the experience.
Exactly.
You're just a dead person. You're a zombie to them.
Exactly.
You don't even exist. You have no meaning. You have no power. You're just a worthless fucking, zombie slave.
Exactly.
And then you have to deal with fat people who want to sit here all day long and complain and bitch and moan and say stupid things and then target me because somebody in your room was probably recording. It probably wasn't even just me. It was probably other people that hate. Do you know how many people hate other people on this app and come to me with snitch and put shit in the chat and then start live streaming rooms to me because they know I can't hear it and they want to make sure I hear how stupid they are and how much they hate them. It's unbelievable.
19 to 21. That was literally the age that people were getting married. So that's number one. Historically, that's factually incorrect. Second of all, Muhammad literally got rid of usury. He used the program in order to get rid of alcohol within his community, which, by the way, today is the most prevalent out of all of it, right? Alcohol and usury, we use that every day when you're doing banking. Yet somehow he forgot to take rid of the two things that are probably the most important out of all of them, which is child diddling and slavery. How is it that he had the best opportunity to say, look, I'm going to be the last prophet in the world here. Hello. I'm the last prophet right here. But I forgot the most important thing, which is to get rid of the practice that, by the way, he was the only one. We have no other sources during the Arabian time that people were doing this. He was the only one. The only thing that we can say
Oh my
that
God, Muhammad's the false prophet.
we literally have none of this shit. And on top of that, he banned adoption because he wanted to get his dick wet. He banned adoption, and in order to marry his adopted son's wife for that. And now you're only allowed to foster kids, not adopt anymore, because he wanted to get his dick wet. And now we're supposed to just accept that? Like all this stuff. Who was having problem around his time with actually banging, their adopted son's wife, banging little kids? Nobody. This was just a problem that he was trying to deal with the whole time. And he brought verses of the Quran, supposedly, the Lawh al-Mahfuz, the eternal tablet of God was written on it. Seriously? Do you expect me to believe that? That's crazy.
Well, I mean, if it is divinely ordained, it doesn't seem like that big of a deal.
By the way, the Roman thing, I mean, I can find a bunch of sources documenting, prepubescent girls getting married. Plutarch thought it was, common and natural for all places to do it.
By that time,
By what
all
time?
those practices were gone. We're talking about during the time of Muhammad onwards, not during the pagan times. We're talking Muhammad onwards. So, and by the way, that's one thing that you don't want to. A lot of Muslims don't want to agree to this. Is that while the entire Muslim empire, the average age of marriage was decreasing in the entire Christian and non-Christian in the non-Muslim world, it was actually increasing. It was going upwards. This was going backwards in a different way when we were talking about the Islamic empires. So, and on top of that, the slavery market was actually becoming the biggest in Muslim worlds at the same time. Again, those two premises that I told you about, slavery and child diddling, could have stopped. Muhammad had every opportunity to stop that, but he didn't. He just chose riba and chose alcohol and other stuff that were, yes, maybe consequential to himself or others, but then what about the rest? You could have gotten rid of this stuff. He had every opportunity to get rid of this stuff in his own life, but he fell short somehow.
Was the Roman guy the messenger of God? I mean, do a billion people follow the Roman guy today? Whereas Muhammad was the messenger of God, and people actually follow him. There's a huge difference, right?
Yeah, but people read Marcus Aurelius' Meditations, but not in the volume that Muslims read Quran. And if they were to read Marcus Aurelius, maybe they create a moral or a virtue in them, or a new law that would prevent them right now from wanting to be diddlers and terrorists.
I mean, if the argument is simply that like Muhammad could have like improved like the ethical practices of his days relative to what we think proper ethical behavior is, then yeah, you're not gonna find an argument from me like a counter argument. But like the same token, I think you could say that about pretty much every prophet and religious figure.
Snowflake,
Moses.
snowflake, peanut butter. I'm gonna kill some. I have some mice that are like I can see them outside my house every day, so I'm gonna get some mouse traps this week and put some peanut butter on there and try to kill these fucking rats.
There are verses, for example, that are actually brought.
Yeah, peanut butter doesn't fall off the bait. So it's sticky, so they sit there and they lick it, and then it kills them.
So he created a verse. By the way, guys, I'm getting a revelation. You guys get the hell out of my.
I know. I have a stone. They're living underneath a stone underneath this little fucking shade.
I mean, stuff like that. You're wondering.
But fucking raccoons. Oh my god.
You find much
Those are
daylight
basically
between
big
this and
rats.
like
That
definitely
fucking
stuff from the
is
old
scared
ones.
fucking.
Yeah, they're crazy. They're basically like little mini bears.
But I'll tell you one thing.
Yeah, and possums.
Yeah, possums are really gross.
Really fucking ugly.
I shot a possum though last year with a pellet gun, and I actually felt kind of bad because I was like, poor fucking possums, just trying to get something to eat and trying to kill it. Like,
that's descriptive, not prescriptive.
Poor
That's
thing.
prescribing you to go around
Have you ever
killing.
seen them? They hiss
Yeah, but
and never
I know, they're like clown house people. They get angry and they hiss.
when they hiss.
Where we get like the prescriptions
But
again.
then I
like,
tried to kill it, and then I felt bad because I was like, poor little thing. It's basically a big rat, which is what's really gross about them. They're so ugly. See, a raccoon. Raccoons are kind of cute. Squirrels are kind of cute. Raccoons are probably the cutest, but yeah, that's the thing about a possum is they're so ugly that like it's just you want to kill it. But the truth is, when you try to kill it, you feel kind of bad for it. You're like, oh, the thing just wants to eat and just be left alone. It's not bothering anyone. Yeah, I'm in a room right now called Islam is Right About
Is
Women.
there something that you're saying this? Is it okay? There may be something in the Quran that actually prescribes that you go and have sex with little girls, but like even
You know, like a Bible thing for me. There was
like the point is like you
a
also
little
make the
girl
argument
playing
earlier
in her
that like
sandbox.
government
She
could
was
have
2
like
years old.
stopped
In
it.
the
Like it's
backyard.
also like
And you know,
seem
the
like
raccoon is
permission right, in some
during
cases
the
like
day
you could have stopped
has
certain
rabies.
practices. I mean that same
And
argument could
the
apply to like
raccoon jumped
Moses
into her
and
sandbox
many
and
of
balls her
the
face to no recognition.
prophets and
That is
really appreciate.
The entire world.
I'm not a Jew either, dude. I'm not defending Judaism.
Okay.
So no, I don't think raccoons are.
I'm just curious what your attitude was. Like if it's something that you specifically
When I was a kid, my cousin David, he almost blinded me in the sandbox. I had to go to the fucking ER. He almost fucking knocked my eye out.
I'm an agnostic. I don't follow any religion.
My dad was so protective of me. I wanted a sandbox.
And it
Put
doesn't
a
affect me in any way,
sandbox
shape,
in
or form.
the back playroom.
Look, I'm not making an argument, right? That's not a good crooked policy. I was just curious whether like
Did they talk about you? No, they didn't mention you.
It seems like you study the Quran a lot, but not the Old Testament as much, and that's I don't know, like it's reasonable to inquire into like what the motives were, right? But like, presumably you live in a country like you probably live in the US where you're not exposed as much to like Islam.
Good God, man.
So
God, these liberals, the whole point of being a liberal is somehow show Islam in a good light and make other religions look just as bad. That's the whole purpose of the religion,
Correct.
Are you telling me that you're an Islamic? Are you an Islamic expert? With all due respect. Like,
I'm not. I'm just asking. No, of course not. That wasn't the point at all. That wasn't even close to the point. Like maybe looks like you didn't get the point though, right?
You want my credentials? I'll give you my credentials.
You don't need my credentials. Yeah.
I'm an Arabic speaker. I studied to go to a university in order to become an Islamic judge. I figured out all these stuff.
Well, that
So
makes sense.
I know all of this stuff because I actually the main reason why I left Islam is because of the moral issue.
Okay, look, I didn't even know that you I just maybe for some reason I thought earlier I misunderstood something you said. That actually everything makes sense now. Like honestly, it does, right?
Yeah. No worries.
The thing you need to understand is that Islamic slavery was actually extremely humane for the time, and in fact, it's really only slavery in name only. Like the better term for it, which is the translation of the Arabic term, which is those whom your right hand possess. I think we should call it that in English to make it clear that it's like a completely different and incomparable institution to sort of Western transatlantic chattel slavery. Slavery was more similar to maybe indentured servitude. You were required to treat your slaves kindly. You were required to feed them from your own table. If you abuse them, there are stories of the prophets ordering slaves to be manumitted in order, because they were abused heavily. Like the prophet, spent his entire life encouraging the manumission of slaves, and he himself freed countless slaves. And as we see, there's no slavery remaining in the Muslim world for the most part. I mean, maybe you could argue Mauritania still has it, but I would say that's a backwater that is not being emulated by other states. So clearly, overall, I think Islam is an extremely anti-slavery religion, perhaps the most anti-slavery religion.
Yeah, but Mark, I mean, if you read Dhammapada, I don't ever remember anything about the Buddhist sayings even touching on slavery. So it wasn't even a consideration.
Yeah, but the problem is, slavery was well known back then, even in the Buddhist empires. But the thing is that people who are bad actors would say, "Oh, well, that means that we can get away with anything when it comes to slavery because he didn't even talk about it."
No, I don't think it existed.
What, you think it didn't exist in China?
Well, what I'm saying, well, I mean, obviously, I'm not gonna say that it didn't exist. I'm just saying that in the philosophy. Okay, but I'm just saying that in the philosophy that they don't touch on it in the way that you might in the Quran or something. But anyways, I'm just saying Islam is right about women.
Which didn't actually have it.
Yeah, I think the most recent example of Islamic slavery was ISIS taking on Yazidi slaves, and they did exactly to the Yazidis what the Muslims did to the Jewish slaves and the other tribes. They took Yazidi girls as sex slaves at a very tender age of 9. Some of them were transferred to Hamas. One of the girls who grew up in Gaza was actually a Yazidi sex slave from ISIS who was transferred to Hamas in Gaza. They actually got her to escape, and the Israeli army took a video interview.
After they killed all the people who were putting her into slavery, they were all killed in an airstrike. She just walked out in a pile of rubble. She went on TikTok saying, "Hey, if Israeli army is here, I'm live streaming over here. I'm on this road. Can you please pick me up?" And they can't pick her up.
Well,
Yeah, and
ISIS weren't real Muslims, so this is examples of a red herring.
ISIS were not Muslims? In what sense?
Well, I mean, it's well known. There's a saying of the Prophet that if one Muslim accuses another of apostatizing, then at least one of them is an apostate. So in other words, if the accuser, the Takfiri is getting it wrong, then he himself or she herself is an apostate. Now, ISIS basically declared anyone who defied their rule to be and didn't recognize them as the proper caliphate of being an apostate. And of course, the overwhelming majority of Orthodox Muslims, all of the clerics in Al-Azhar University, everyone in Deoband, anyone in the University of Medina, there's this universal scholarly consensus that they are not, they themselves are not apostates for not failing to recognize ISIS and Abu Bakr as the caliph. So clearly, that implies deductively that in fact ISIS themselves were apostates.
Well, no, I mean, all it deductively implies is that either ISIS are the apostates or the. Right.
But you're right, but there is this inductive element to the case, which is that there's this thousands of years old tradition of the recognition of the Sunnah, that ultimately the Sunnah will not get things wrong, or if there's disagreement, it's going to be minor. So given that we know that it's the overwhelming consensus among Sunni scholars that they're not apostates for failing to recognize ISIS as the proper caliphate, we can infer from that probabilistically that in fact they're not apostates, and thus, from our previous deductive investigations, it must be ISIS who are the apostates, so therefore they were never true Muslims to begin with.
But how do you probabilistically and inductively determine all this, Dr. Mark?
So the head of ISIS, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, right, was a scholar of Islam. His whole PhD thesis was on Islam. He spent 10 years of his life studying Islam before he joined the mosque as an imam. He was the founder of one of those sects within his gang of fellow brethren Muslims. So, and would you say Taliban are the true Muslims then? I mean, do the Taliban do anything different that ISIS does not do? I mean, if anything, the Taliban are from the Deobandi school, which is in India, which is not even an Arab school. The ISIS are more genuinely Arabs,
Well, if the Taliban isn't going around takfiring everyone who doesn't recognize their hegemony, then I would say they're true Muslims. But ISIS isn't. I mean, the fact that al-Baghdadi, may have gone through an Islamic curriculum, maybe he was Muslim. Okay, maybe he was Muslim at some point in his youth, but at some, by the time he founded ISIS and declared its supremacy, then he had himself apostatized. So he wasn't a true Muslim at that point, or at the point later, of course, when he was going around enslaving Yazidis. Because as we already agreed, Islam doesn't really have slavery. It has this different institution that Western Orientalists are calling slavery.
No, Muslims, even, if you go to the history of India, if you go to the markets of Afghanistan back in the day, thousands and thousands of Hindu and Punjabi women were being sold in the sex markets by Muslim invaders who were mostly Afghans. They were not even the ISIS clan. They were most likely very similar to what you would call the modern day Deobandi school, right? In fact, the Sufis also did sex slavery. The Sufis were known to have some of the biggest markets of sex slaves of people from other religions.
Well, it may be the case that unlike the institution of those whom your right hand possessed, there was in some contexts like real slavery akin to European slavery, but that doesn't mean it's really Islamically sanctioned.
How can you just not just analyze the Quran and say, damn, this is a bad book? This isn't a good optimization for life. A lot of this is really bad. And just leave it at that and just know the whole system is all based off of this one book, the glorious Quran. And just know that it's a shitty book. And therefore, 1.1 billion people right now are adherents to a shit book.
I mean, I agree that you and I, as English people, I don't know if you speak any other languages, it's a really uninspiring, boring book in English translation. But I mean, that's not the right criterion to judge it by. The right criterion to judge it by is its quality in the Arabic language. And in the Arabic language, it is unambiguously not only the greatest book in the entire Arabic language, but arguably, the greatest book of any book ever written in any language. In any language, for its native writing system rather than any kind of translation. And in fact, not only is it the greatest, it's essentially miraculous. It's people have had 1,400 years to produce a single surah or 10 surahs like it. They failed every time. If they had produced a single one, they would have refuted it and no one would have been a Muslim. But obviously, they can't do it because of its inimitable quality in the Arabic language specifically, if not, some man-made English translation.
Well, I say all the time on this app that all communication is hypnosis. And if you listen to the Glorious Quran being recited in the Glorious Quran 24/7 room on this app, where it's constantly being recited, you realize that it's a very powerful hypnosis. It's very psychedelic and hypnotic. So it has a power, but the programming messaging is stupid. But nonetheless, it's still a powerful hypnosis. The rolling of the R's, the chanting itself is very powerful in terms of creating deep relaxation. But there's just really no intelligence or comprehension in what they're saying and espousing in the actual, messaging. It just sounds good. It's superficial.
For a divine origin. Yeah, but that sounds like a good origin. I mean, good evidence of divine origin, right? If they have such a supernatural.
Right. And the hypnotic quality of like the phonetic, that's just one tiny aspect of its inimitability. Like combine if you combine the hypnotic aspect of the sounds with the extraordinary poetry that resists any kind of classification in terms of known known forms of poetry, Arabic poetry in the 7th century. You combine it with its sort of prophetic foreknowledge, not only of science but of history and archaeology, its prophecies, the countless literary devices, and you think all of this was written by an illiterate man. Like, what's more likely that an illiterate man was able, to do all of these things simultaneously, much less, or even just a single one of them in the middle of Arabia, when everyone around him was motivated to dispute it and just produce a single surah, and if they had done it, they would have completely ended his burgeoning political career. What's more likely that, or that he was
here is the thing. I think I would admit with you that Muslims committed atrocities. They invaded people's lands, they enslaved them, they enslaved their women. All these bad things Muslims they did, yeah. But they are not in the book. Stop accusing Quran of such things. I think it's time for you to be a bit serious. We are talking about the book and accusing it for being the source of this. You have to show it to me in the book.
Listen, I agree. The Quran is not a historical narrative that gives us any actual understanding.
You are not listening. You are not listening. Dodge, you are not listening. Right now, the context you were discussing about enslaving people, and you said Quran is a shitty book. Show me in Quran where Allah or the God or the author of the book says you can just go out there and enslave people. It's not in the book. So you need to start.
Okay, let me Google that for you. 1 second. Please hold.
Yes. And please, when you bring the verse, bring the context. I will read the context for you and show me when it says you can do that.
Yeah, we miss Phoenix right now. He would have been nice, or any other favorite ex-Muslim. But did Muhammad have slaves, warrior?
No.
Did Muhammad not have sex slaves?
No. Muhammad had mulkul yamin, your right-hand possession. Right-hand possession is not the slaves. Right-hand possession is literally the poor, weak people in society. You literally will be there.
Oh, right. The girl whose family he killed and beheaded.
1 second.
I mean, can't you just view it as a caste system where you have these new overlords who come in with this supreme philosophy and understanding, and the unlearned, the unwise, the illiterate of the population are now doing all the work. I mean, you can look at the chat from Wikipedia and see a young African boy chained carrying a stone on his head. So, I mean, to anyone who thinks that because we're all equal and the Quran says so, that the slaves are going to be equal in heaven. I mean, you're just really an asshole. You're a cocksucker who essentially likes slavery. I mean, it's evil, beyond evil. You're literally ruining people's lives, giving them no life, just making them, workhorses. It's brutal. It's medieval.
Modern research into algebraic geometry has uncovered the deep relationships that the surahs of the Quran has with with certain elliptic curves, the rank, and like people think that there's like a lot of pointers to like a proof of the Swinnerton Dyer conjecture and so on, Iwasawa theory, a lot of deep connections, right? Like how could Muhammad have possibly have known even like abstract algebra? Forget
Yeah.
modern stuff.
Yeah, I mean, wasn't tuned then on the range geometry.
I mean, there's what is it? The Romans borrowed from the Persians the name logarithm, or I can't remember how the Romans borrowed some mathematical.
Algorithm.
Is it algorithm? Is that the word? Yeah.
I wasn't in the room yet.
I mean, listen, back.
Al-Khwarizmi, his name is Al-Khwarizmi. He wrote a book called Kitab al-Hind. Kitab al-Hind refers to the mathematics of India. So Al-Khwarizmi wrote a book on the mathematics of India, which became popular in Europe, and they were so appreciative of these ideas that they gave the name algorithm. Not just that, the Arabs took the ideas of sine and cosine functions from India, and they gave it the name sine because they misunderstood it to be a pocket or jib. So anyway, all in all, the Arabs get a lot of credit for things they did not invent, but they were certainly curious people. They learned a lot, they traveled a lot, and they wrote a lot of books. So you must give it to them, but it was not always their ideas, but they popularized.
I'm so glad we have Shua here to disabuse us of even the smallest credit we might want to give to Muslims and Arabs in general. Right? Like,
absolutely, man. 100%.
The Delhi Sultanate already existed at the time of Al-Khwarizmi's writings, so most likely he was getting all of that stuff from Indian Muslims specifically.
No, Indian Muslims were never known to do a lot of mathematical work. In fact, you can look at the school of Brahmagupta and Aryabhatta, and which is where most of these ideas came from. So the ideas of decimal place value system, the ideas of sine and cosine functions, as well as a differential calculus from the Kerala School of Mathematics.
You got to give it to the Brit.
I mean, that's a common name. Like the Kerala School, as impressive as it was, definitely didn't invent differential calculus.
I think you got to give it to. Go ahead, Shiva.
No. I was just asking Mark if that is your claim, or have you read about it, or have you seen the documentary about this, or should I send it to you just for your knowledge?
I mean, I don't know if I probably haven't seen whatever specific documentary you have in mind. But I mean, I've read about the debate, and I know that it's more or less universally rejected by historians of mathematics outside of India.
But they weren't Indian mathematics, so we don't really care. But
yeah. I mean, we don't actually. I mean, it's possible that some of them were secretly Muslim, but were hiding it in order to avoid any kind of marginalization.
Absolutely. What happened was lately a lot of Indian historians have gone and produced BBC documentaries. So that is how they have kind of spread the propaganda. So yeah, you might be right.
How do you view colonialism in terms of information extraction from the world? Because I've read so many English translations of Hindu classical texts, Buddhist classical texts, Chinese classical texts, all sacred texts that the British and the Victorian era translated from 1820 to 1920. I mean, they were literally sucking up the world's information and retranslating it into English. So to me, that is like one massive accomplishment of the British or English speaking peoples. It may maybe they caused a lot of chaos around the world, but nonetheless, they extracted all the high value intelligence from every single major society on the planet from all their sacred texts. They got the best fruits of every country and put it into English.
And who did that first? The Muslims. Under the Abbasids specifically, and like the court of Harun al-Rashid. Like, I mean, they had synthesized ancient Greek and Byzantine and Arabic and Indian and even to some extent Chinese thought into one coherent, more or less perfect system.
AKA Islam.
It's almost like the Muslims were behind like every evil and unethical practice. I bet you if you look into the history in like cricket, like I've never actually thought about this, but like, there's like the term like not quite cricket means like doing something unethical. It was probably invented because of something like a Pakistani cricketer did. Am I right, Sean?
No, you are not right. Everybody are evil, by the way. Every civilization who ruled the earth is evil. The Romans, the Byzantines, the Americans today, everybody are evil. They are killing, they are taking advantage, they are doing all the bad things. So stop using, and by the way, even the positive side, like what we at least we think positive, whether it's science, it's advancement, it's whatever values even. I don't even credit them to Islam. So stop crediting things that human beings does to religion. It's not about being a Christian or Hindu or Muslim or whatever. Those are people who have been ruling lands, and any ruler, he has a vision, he develops something, he pushes something here, something there, some science. So it's all human things, but it has nothing to do with religion. By the way, Islam, the book of God itself, it has nothing to. In fact, God in Quran says, "Forget about this life. I'm here. This message for you is to don't get, driven by life, because life will take you literally, will make you love this life and don't focus on next life. God don't want that in the book, and this is what people are missing. Yeah, they are using it as an excuse. You cannot. God, the focus of Quran is mainly for next life. Allah says. Avoid.
Yeah, but warrior, there's only the now.
Like, is there any surah in the Quran that talks about like irony and how to like recognize it?
Sorry, say again. What's the question?
That's a good question. It's kind of funny.
You said irony. I don't know.
It's a little bit like I heard.
Maybe this is like language issue. Like when I said stuff about like how the Quran is like root of all evil and stuff. I was being sarcastic, right? I was just parodying like guys like Sean.
No. The envy and the hatred comes in sarcasm. So it's deeply rooted in you.
No, he's pointing out that you don't have a sense of humor, warrior. That you're just a warrior, but you're not a comedian. You don't have a sense of humor. You're like a bridge that has no give.
This is what you are doing 24/7.
No, this isn't what I am doing 24/7. This is what you're doing. You're projecting. This is what you do all the time, 24/7. You're projecting.
You are here talking about God and Islam 24/7.
No, brother, I am not. This isn't how I spend my day. It's not. I usually roast other types of peoples. So, I mean, when you said, does the Quran talk about irony? And it's funny how it doesn't. It's ironic that it doesn't. But the point is, that's like saying, why don't white people write rap songs about killing other white people all day long? Maybe it's just not in the culture. But, the point is, warrior doesn't have a sense of humor about any of this. He's an all or nothing person with regards to Islam. And that's the problem with Islam. It's always all or nothing.
The discussion is serious now. Why you are taking it to some irony? You are talking serious. Why you don't you address
Would it just become serious right now? I mean, I don't know. Did I you don't have a sense of humor. You're all or nothing. You're too serious about all of this. That's the problem.
Because you were talking seriously. The whole discussion was serious up until I brought some arguments, and then you just turned it into irony. It doesn't work that way.
No, you said all governments are evil, and you're making all or nothing statements which are not true.
I said early, it's time for you to take Quran seriously.
No, I don't have to take the Quran seriously. It's a shitty book. I have it right behind me on my bookshelf. I look at it from time to time to remind myself just how stupid of a book it is and how shitty it is. It's horrible. It's a stupid book. It's for stupid people who have no further knowledge. If you think it's the one book in all books, you truly are a schmuck.
The only shit thinking in life is to judge something without, focusing on it, without reading it, analyzing it.
I've read it and I've analyzed it, and it's stupid. It's for children or demented, retarded people.
You are literally, your head has a big pile of shit because you are an idiot. You cannot judge any book without reading it. This is your problem.
I can pull it off the bookshelf and read it right now, and you would agree. Damn, that's not that smart. That's pretty stupid.
By the way, I'm not talking about of it because because I believe it's a book of God. do not judge anything without reading it. You are judging a book right now. You never read it. You didn't do anything.
I have read it, and I can read it right now, sir. I'm repeating myself because you're repeating yourself.
You didn't. You are so dumb.
No, I'm not dumb, Habibi. Habibi, I have read Glorious Quran, and it's boring, and it's stupid, and it's pathetic. It's weak, it's retarded, it's a brainwash device. It's stupid.
Okay, so I would say that Warrior, instead of convincing us how great the Quran is, why don't you go and convince all the people who follow the Quran, right, or read it at least, like ISIS and Boko Haram and Al-Shabaab, Al-Qaeda, Hamas, Lashkar-e-Taiba, Mujahideen, Hizbul Mujahideen. Go and talk to them and tell them how beautiful Quran is, and they should not be doing all this after reading the Quran. They shouldn't be cutting people's heads off. They shouldn't be blowing up the airplanes. They shouldn't be raping women, taking sex slaves. Tell them, don't tell us.
No, here's the thing. I am here against all false claims. You made a false claim against Quran, so I have to stop that. I'm telling you what you say.
It's not a false claim. It's called an opinion. I have an opinion that it sucks.
Okay, that's fine. So you are not being like objective. No, it's just an opinion. You can show your opinions, no problem.
Thank you, but it's also your opinion that it's a great book, and I think it sucks.
I didn't say it's a great book. I just said what you said about it. It's not that.
Listen, I have read. Have you ever read Green Eggs and Ham by Dr. Seuss? I would say that book's probably at least 100 times better than the Glorious Quran, and that's called Dr. Seuss's, Green Eggs and Ham, and that's a children's book. The message in that book is go ahead and try it. You might like it, which means stop taking the Quran so seriously. Maybe you'll pull your head out of your ass and you'll see the truth.
Oh, by the way, only when you stop reading Quran, then you will know it is really the book of God, and that's why it's called a sign for real. That's why nobody can come with something like it, because for real, if nobody can. You have to read it. Then when you start studying it, then you will know the value. But somebody like you who don't even read, and you are just here online, jumping here and there, you are not going anywhere with your life.
What happened? They're not talking anymore.
Yeah, there's no fixing these people.
I mean, it's like somebody who just wants to, eat steak every single hour, or every single day of the week. They don't want to change their diet. They're just addicted to one form of, communication being the all or nothing book. And it's ridiculous. Go to a library. There's a million books out there. Enjoy. But don't declare that this one book is the all or nothing book of all books. And that it's, it's a mind virus. It's a hypnotic mind virus.
Yeah, I think some people call it the death cult. That's what it is.
It's really obnoxious.
Anybody who makes a superiority claim on a book better tell me they have read all the books in the world. Yeah. And then they have come to the conclusion that their book is the best.
But, people have strange bedfellows. The Irish, for example, are super supportive of Muslims and anti-Semitic against Jews. But yet the Catholic or the Protestant Irishman isn't going to agree with the Quran, but they side with them for political reasons. It's stupidity with associated stupidity.
Most of them probably haven't read the Quran, certainly not very deep, very certainly not in Arabic. I think if they did do that, a lot of them would come to realize it's divinely inspired.
Hey Mark, earlier I was gonna tell you, like, have you seen that movie Arrival?
Yeah.
Remember the scene at the beginning where like he's like the general dude is like trying to like see if she's worthy of the job and stuff. Like he asks her a question. You know the scene? Like he asks her a question, like something like so in Sanskrit, like the word for war is gavispi. Like what does it actually mean? Right? And like the other guy like doesn't know the answer, but he does.
Doctors and
she's
nurses
like, the answer is
better hope they got a good moral
like a
compass,
desire for
otherwise
horse,
they
desire
can
for
cause you
cattle.
major
Like,
problems.
oh yeah, you know your linguistics, so you're hired. But it turns out that's actually like true. Like just a second, can you just give me 1 second, please? Like it's it is actually some obscure usage of that word in Sanskrit to mean like war.
That's interesting. I was actually talking to Sam about Ted Chiang this morning.
Oh wow, yeah. I mean, that's the other thing. Like story of your life is like I think it's my absolute favorite science fiction story.
That's actually one of the few major short stories written that I haven't read yet.
Really? Like it's only written like 2 or 3 collections. I mean, that's like there's another good one also like that's almost as good. I like called what's it called? Like the one, the name the hell is the absence of God.
Yeah, I've read that one.
That's brilliant. It's like it's one of those few stories that like just actually made me laugh out loud at the end.
Do you remember the movie that Hillary Clinton and Obama claimed caused the battle at the embassy in, was it Libya? Benghazi, yeah. And they claimed that movie, because it essentially insults the prophet, is what caused the attack. And that was a total lie and misinformation and fake news. But I'm just wondering, like, I saw brief moments of that movie where it's so laughable because it's like done on a green screen and it's so low quality that maybe Muhammad, the prophet of something. I can Google it for you. But what I'm saying is maybe there needs to be a new movie about Muhammad, really depicting the truth and the craziness of it all, like where it is like a psychedelic thriller of insane proportions, of absolute insanity, because it truly is a crazy story.
Nobody would dare make that movie. I mean, anybody who has dared even write a book has been killed, or you know what happened to Charlie Hebdo. Nobody would dare.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is you could make it into this ridiculous psychedelic movie of drugs and murder and political intrigue and chaos, because there's only one authorized version of Muhammad. And it's actually a very good movie because they never show Muhammad in the movie. They show this famous actor who I guess is like somebody in the gang. So how do you view Islam in terms of like mafia don, because I technically view like Donald Trump now as like the godfather of one of the biggest gangs on the planet. And so I'm just wondering, like, if they could, you see what I'm saying? That there's this whole gangism type thing happening throughout human history where people form gangs, and they have their codex or their list of instructions. And this is the basis of all political movements, is this gang type of mentality.
You come to me on the day of my marriage to this 9-year-old girl called Aisha. You don't even call me prophet.
That's funny.
I mean, I don't know. I definitely personally don't support any kind of vigilante violence, but I mean, you have to see things from their point of view. Like, just imagine the love that you have for your mother and father, and multiply it by 100. That's the kind of love that's barely approaching the kind of love the believers have for the prophet and his family. Like, you wouldn't stand for your mother to be introduced through the streets, but that's what these homophobes are trying to do to Muhammad and the mother of believers and many other important figures in early Islamic history.
Yeah, they can take their love and go to hell. I mean, my love is for my own. If you offend me, insult me, you walk away, I walk away. You don't have to be behead each other. I mean, or don't try to dominate over me. You know, it's as simple as that. I mean, that's just maturity from a human perspective.
No, of course, like,
But imposition. What?
No, but look, of course, like, there are limits, right? Like, if you make a movie, right, like, let's say in a country like India where there's, like, religious feelings at stake, right? And, some of those movies, like, what's the phrasing they use? They hurt people's sentiments. Isn't that what they like to say in India?
Exactly.
Right? Those kind of movies we shouldn't, like, get rid of those, right? Sure.
No, I mean, I'm saying that, see, if all religions were equally tolerant, right, I wouldn't mind making movies on anything at all. But if the other religion is not tolerant, don't make shit on my religion. As simple as that. Make it a level playing field. Don't try to be liberal, secular, but only make movies against Hinduism and not even touch the topic on Islam. Make it same for everybody.
They get the free pass because they will kill you.
Yeah. No, not only that. Number two, every country, hold on. Every country should protect their native traditions. Like in the US, they should make it, I mean, I don't know, they're secular countries, liberal, right? But you should not be able to offend the United States. When in America, you shouldn't be able to burn the American flag. Basic stuff. Similarly, when you go to India, you shouldn't be able to insult the Indian Buddha or the Indian Krishna or the Indian whatever, because that is a native religion of those lands. These are basic things that every country should follow just to maintain your basic inherent culture. That's what makes you the country that you are.
And by insult, you're of course referring to, like, say, like, a fictional depiction of an event that happened 20 years ago, whose facts are somewhat in dispute, right? Like that should never be allowed to happen, right? Because it might inflame religious sentiments. Even like, and like, your point is well made, like, you're well taken, right? Like, it's a tit for tat thing, right? Like, even like if you were to make a movie, right, like this, like that inflames Hindu sentiments, made completely by like a Hindu production house with Hindu actors, Hindu producers and directors, right? Like, the Muslims would still be to blame for such an act, right? So that movie should still be like,
Well, you're making your own claims and you're making your own conclusions.
I don't think that's hypothetically.
Well, we can say anything we want hypothetically, but what is happening right now is that Islamic terrorism and Islamic double standards and Islamic hypocrites persist and pervade the Islamic communication. They never get into anything good about it. It's always just political bullshit. It's always political bullshit. It's the song that never ends.
Well, it's not double standards because the Muslims aren't going to get angry if Christians start attacking those who blaspheme the Prophet Isa or the Prophet Musa. So it's a single standard that they're applying consistent.
What? See, that's the exact same thing that Deepak just did, Mark. Christians don't go around blaspheming against these people. You're talking about the pedophile stuff.
No, I'm saying.
Well, neither do the Muslims, though. That's the thing. Like, the point is they follow their standards, right? Like, they don't actually go around like blaspheming or making fun of or mocking Christians, or at least Christian beliefs, right? I mean, obviously, like, there'll be some scattered examples like that, but right, like.
See, that none of that shit matters. Words don't mean shit. It's violence. That is the ultimate problem. That is the only big problem. And that is the big barrier or threshold that Muslims seem to be involved in quite often.
There's this notion that words and violence are these like separate, non-overlapping categories, and that's like obvious fiction. If I say I'm going to kill you or strap fire, there's a fire in the middle of a burning theater, that's a form of violence and should be treated as such. Similarly, if I inflame the sentiments of millions of people in the sort of not just a little bit, but in essentially the maximal possible way, like hitting them where it hurts the most, that's a form of violence.
It's not. It's an expression. It's not. It's an expression of freedom of speech. You have to understand the U.S. Constitution. People have no idea how to actually do freedom of speech controversially because they've never tried to practice insulting Islam or Christianity or Judaism. I'm telling you that most people have no concept of freedom of speech because they've never actually engaged in freedom of speech.
Well, I mean, the U.S. Constitution is phrased somewhat vaguely. I mean, there's universal consensus that, again, I have the right in my own house to shout the word fire, but again, no judge is going to.
No, we're talking about artistic expression here. We're talking about creating a movie about Muhammad and calling it art and intentionally upsetting people and making a mockery of it for the sake of art to prove that Muslims are violent, stupid, irrational people, easily upset by bullshit, that they have no control over their emotions, and that they're generally psychotic.
Well, the point is just that freedom of speech, that's just an oversimplification of what the Constitution is saying. It clearly prohibits speech that encourages certain amounts of violence, and to Muslims, insulting, the Prophet and his family, that is violence.
No, stupid. It's not violence. When I pull a knife out and I stab you in the chest, that's violent. When I say that your religious beliefs are stupid and you worship a murderer or pedophile, that's not violence. That's my opinion and it's words. When you actually physically hurt somebody, that's what violence is. And this is why I think you're stupid.
Well, they're both violence. One is just a sort of more.
No, they're not, stupid. One is actual violence where you physically hurt somebody. The other one is called a word. When I say that Muhammad is a pedophile and the Quran sucks and it's a shit book, there's a big difference there.
If you look at the neuroscience.
told me that you were stupid before. I didn't know.
If you look at the neuroscience, basically, I mean, one of the more interesting findings of the last couple decades is that essentially the neural circuitry underlying emotional pain is extremely similar and overlapping with the neural circuitry that underlies physical pain. I mean, obviously I'm talking about the stuff in the brain rather than, the nerve endings spread across the
Welcome,
body.
Dr. Sasha.
So, when you're
As we
insulted,
wrap up our
the
multi-
human being they will ever hear of.
riveting shit here.
Like you're doing as much as immediately punching them.
Okay, so here's the deal. The Muslims can do whatever the fuck they want in their lands, right? Because let's say it's violence to them if you call Muhammad a bad name, so be it. But that is their law in their land. They cannot impose those laws in our lands. That is the difference. I mean, I don't care to marry religious children. That's their problem. Because their society have a consensus.
I've been making fun of people all day. I'm exhausted. Now I'm debating Muslims. You want to do a roast room together? Let's do it tomorrow. I'm so burned out. Tomorrow, can you come on tomorrow morning? That's honestly the best time to destroy people. Everybody's on in the morning. You're depressed. Low dope. Dope up, brother. You gotta dope up.
They are telling us
whatever. I mean, look,
Islam is violence to us. That is fundamental to Islam.
Yeah, hold on. Mark is gonna respond here.
God gave me everything.
Well, it's their. I mean, depending on what country we're talking about here, it's their country too. So it's not like an exclusive thing where, they're just, they're mere guests. They have, full rights and citizenship, and thus, they get to protect.
I generally try to roast atheists and theists. It ends up I roast everybody, including myself in the process.
Okay, so
I call it the air fryer of Clubhouse. You self-cook. Everybody's in the air fryer and everybody's screaming.
La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, which means there is no other God but Allah. To me, that is an offense.
I think atheists are the funniest people to roast because
Will they change their?
they're really stupid because they don't like words. But then I realize how much I hate some theists as well because they're really stupid.
Well, I mean, Hinduism is obviously an one of if not the most diverse major religions. But there are many prominent strains that are ultimately monotheistic, in which all of the many gods are in fact kind of mere aspects of a single absolute being, and thus what they're saying, in that sort of shahada is fully compatible with Hinduism, and thus you shouldn't be.
Not at all. They're saying Muhammad is the only and last messenger of Allah. Should I accept? I said no. Hinduism has many messengers. Billions of messengers can come tomorrow. Christians won't accept this. The Jews won't accept this. Well, so is it not an offense and a violence to those religions when you bark this thing from the mosque every day, 5 times a day?
Muslims certainly don't think that Muhammad was the only messenger.
The last message, not the only, the last thing.
Right. So it's compatible with Hinduism that Muhammad was the last.
Not at
or does it last for anything?
Well, I just don't think that it's intrinsic to Hinduism that there are, divinely inspired messengers of the same grade as Muhammad today. Like, it may be the case that many Hindus actually do believe this, but it's not sort of theologically normative to believe this, and that's what matters in this context.
Yeah, first of all, we don't have a concept of messengers. We only have a concept of gurus. And anybody can become a guru, anybody can be divinely inspired. There's no exclusivity for a messenger in Hinduism, but it was not about Hinduism alone. My point is, any other religion might take offense and might feel they're violated. Should they go on a killing spree because of this? I mean,
well,
go ahead.
I was going to say, speaking of, things that might offend other people, like, what is the status of foreigners under the caste system again?
Dr. Sasha, you know how much you sound like Longmont Potion Castle? It's unbelievable.
Assumption that it's like basically
no, I think it's a distraction. Well, your comments are distractions. Like, oh, let me just, gotcha moment. Oh, I'm so smart. I'm such a self-hating Hindu pope. I got a gotcha moment right now. I know so much about you, dude.
You gotta understand, there is a book. It's called The Feeling Good.
He had said something too good, like you would have been the first one.
Deepak, there's a book called The Feeling Good Handbook. It's a psychology book, and it has a list of 10 or 15 cognitive distortion disorders. And one of them is all or nothing thinking. And if you don't think that Islam is not the biggest hypocrite of all or nothing thinking of all time, and is essentially just copyright infringement, and it's just, it's so crazy that it worked, but it's not, it's so essentially automatic, meaning if you want to convert to Islam, it's just a one quick sentence. So as you're conquering lands and you're building up a horde of slaves and nations, everyone can quickly and easily transfer to the new political ruler by declaring that Muhammad is the one and only true messenger and the last messenger of God. It's ridiculous bullshit hypnosis. It's evil. It's stupid. It's low IQ. It's all or nothing. And Hinduism is dynamic, and it's really based on wisdom and not the wisdom of the sword. It's based on going within as opposed to going without, and this going outside. This is the problem with Islam. They don't go within. They do not. They don't realize their own divinity. They're just fucking stupid low IQ people who don't want to read more than one stupid book.
I think the general problem of liberals, around the world is that, they have a simple mental model. This religion is shit. All religions must be shit. Shit is all the same, so all religions must be the same. And the simple mental model is how they make their arguments for everything they learn, everything they do. When they go support Palestine, they think along the same lines. So it's a very simple brain. The liberal brain is a very simple. They don't understand nuance. They don't go in depth. They have no patience to go one level below the surface. And I get it how the brain works. I also appreciate why they say what they do, or why they partner with Islamists around the world. This is a phenomenon. It's not unique. So I get it.
Yeah, one of the most loathsome doctrines in Islam is that, all people, I think all Muslims are supposed to be equal, right? Which, again, if you come from the Hindu casteist perspective, right, it's disgusting.
Yeah, how are all Muslims the same when the Shia says the Sunni is not a Muslim, the Sunni says the Barelvi is not a Muslim, the Barelvi says the Ahmadi is not a Muslim, they don't go to each other's mosques, they're not allowed to enter each other's mosques. The Ahmadi of Pakistan are not being allowed to declare they are Muslims. On their passport, they have to sign a form and say we are not Muslims, because if they say we are Muslims, they will get fucking killed. The Ahmadiyas live in protective custody in the middle of their own country, Pakistan. Who built Pakistan? The Ahmadiyas. They were the ones who wanted a separate country for the Muslims. And how are they being tortured within Pakistan today? No, there is no unity in Islam. There is no equality in Islam. In Islam, women are not the same as men. In Islam, Shia is not the same as Sunnis. In Islam, if you don't speak Arabic, you're a third-grade fucking animal.
Indian Muslims who go to Arabia are spit on by the Arabians, and Indian Muslims talk about it extensively on YouTube channels on how they're treated. I mean, the list goes on and on. I mean, like, you've got to be well read to know these things, dude.
Just keep defending it. I mean, spend years defending your weak position. It's a stupid position. It's like somebody who goes to Thanksgiving and says, I don't want to taste everything. I just want to eat the turkey and that's it. It's all or nothing position. It's a cognitive distortion disorder.
Anyway, guys, I gotta go, but have a good night. Cheers.
Take care.
Thanks, Shiva. At least we've proved that Islam is right about women. Well, I think Sam fell asleep because, he's on here 7 days a week, 80 hours a day. But, Sam is sleeping, enjoying all this in his dreams. I'm sure we're cognitively programming him in his sleep.
Deepak, are you still there?
Yeah, I can listen, yeah.
The reason that I mentioned earlier that Sam and I were talking about Ted Chiang earlier today, the context was that we were discussing the Aztecs, and I floated the idea that Ted Chiang should write a story. He likes to write stories where, like, pre-modern scientific or social theories turn out to be actually correct. And so I thought you should write a story where, like, the Aztecs are right about everything. Like, you need human sacrifices to keep the sun rising every day.
Yeah, you read the one about Babel, right? I guess it's not. Yeah, right.
Yeah, I think that was the second one he wrote. I really love that one. I recommended it to all of my friends.
There's a book you might like. I don't know if you already read it. It's called Babel by it's a different Babel by this author called R.F. Kuang. It won, I think, the Nebula last year. It has a really interesting premise. Like the idea is that there's like one kind of magnet in the world.
To get too philosophical about it, really what I'm going based off of is just like my common sense, like everyday intuitions about life. That like there is me, and then there's other people that aren't me that go through different things and whatnot. And so I'm not thinking like too deeply about the nature of the world, but more so that like that. The fact that there are different things that exist like seems to align like with my experiences, right? So it kind of seems like what you're saying is like there's only just one thing that exists.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
and so no, that's fine. And that you would say that's the universe?
Call it the universe, call it consciousness, call it the higher being, call it the collective knowledge. I mean, sweet child, God's got many names, right?
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting.
So, if I may, can I ask you a question there?
Yeah, of course.
So, are you interested? I'm just trying to figure out your interests also, right? And I appreciate, I appreciate your common sense because, I've seen you a few times here on Clubhouse, and I love to talk about common sense, but sort of outside of the prism of religion and dogmas and these things, right? Like, sort of more like what are the kind of common sense that we can derive here and now without name dropping philosophers and all these people, right? Like
labels,
because in the end of the day, like, common sense is something we didn't develop, right? It's not something that is imposed on us. We can't just put a book in an all-out faith into one book and I mean, it would be silly. It would be non-commonsensical to place all your eggs in one basket by just saying, okay, this is the book I go with. This is the book I'm going to worship for the rest of my life. You got to agree with me just a little bit on that. It's not commonsensical, I guess, and common sense, right? It's if you ask me.
So it just depends on like what the book says, right? Like what type of
depends on the book.
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely. I mean, the thing is that I don't know what he's saying or who's claiming to worship a book, right? Because I think that that's nonsensical. Of course, I think you would probably say the same thing. But if the ideas that the book is written based on, right, or the message that the book is sending is something that, upon reading it, humans feel a strong need to take it as sacred, right? Something that is not just any other mundane thing that they read or any other thing that they come across, right? That like these messages, for one reason or another, are to be held sacred amongst people. That's not worshiping a book, but that's just like
you asked me
what things are important for us.
You asked me before if I'm a believer, and thinking about it while you were talking, it just hit me. I believe in transformation. Okay, so some people want to keep things fixed. Some people want transformation. I'm speaking of extremes now, right? Where it's all a spectrum, and if you think about it, all books has potential to be transformers, right? And when you think about it, it's often when you really take a step back, when people say, "Oh, you gotta read this book, it changed my life." No, it didn't. If you really take a step back, you were just looking for an excuse to transform. You've heard of confirmation bias. I'm sure. I got the feeling you know a bit about psychology. So
Yeah, absolutely. How about also the other possibility is that they were enlightened by something they learned in the book, and that inspired them to act and change their life.
But that would, if they were really enlightened, I think it would allow them to detach from the book and say, well, it was not the book; it was something else. It was.
Well, they can attach it to certain things in themselves, right? That it's not purely the fact that they read the book, but that the knowledge of the book linked with their own, motivations or dispositions about certain things that that led to a real transformation, right?
But if you ask me,
the book is still a necessary condition.
Again, I'm not claiming to be enlightened, by the way. Just want to make that clear. But I say, I would imagine if somebody's enlightened and pointing towards one thing, especially like a book, and saying this is the answer. For me, it's my common sense, my gut feeling says that they're not enlightened.
Wouldn't it depend on what the book says, though?
Well, okay. So here's the thing, Eamon. I come on Clubhouse. I see a lot of these rooms, right, where obviously people are very, very consumed in the scriptures, right? But and if it feels like stepping back in time, feels like going back to the Stone Age in some way, because there are so. The body of human knowledge is so vast right now. I get that there was a time, long time before the internet, long time before books were written, long time before the Gutenberg project. Scriptures were scarce, right? Scriptures were scarce. It was very limited what you could read. But now you can find suggestions. I want to decline the word answers. You can find suggestions. You can find inspiration in so many sources of quote unquote knowledge. Again, because in this room, knowledge is questionable. But
don't you find it at least suspicious that with the rise in our progress of knowledge, right, or our progress in human advancement and technology and all of that, that the scriptures are as relevant as they are today in terms of people taking them seriously? Don't you at least find that suspicious that it was relevant back then and it's still relevant now with all this progress?
Well, I'm not. We could go on forever about this models, collected human knowledge. I would put more faith into that than any scripture written thousands of years ago.
Okay, and you read the scriptures, said scriptures.
How the fuck could I ever read all these scriptures? Like, I don't even want to bother. Like, I don't give a shit. When people ask me about the shit, how do you know it's not true if you didn't read it? Well, you go read it. And I spent my time.
Well, how do you know it's unimpressive? That's the question I was.
Well, I don't need to know if it's more impressive than the knowledge I have from other sources. I know that the knowledge I have from other sources is very impressive. You know, already. I don't need to have. Yeah.
But this is a different category of knowledge that we have here, right? So we're talking about knowledge of, like, let's say maybe how the world works. Yeah, maybe you have superior ways of like gaining that knowledge through things that you think are just genuinely better than trying to read it out of the scripture, right? However, if you're talking about knowledge of morality and God and these types of things, maybe the scripture is the place to go for these things, and that it doesn't contradict.
And that's where we fundamentally disagree. And I respect your stance on that, Eamon. I don't think I can convince you otherwise. I don't think you can convince me otherwise. So, I mean, let's leave it at that. But that's where we found out where we're different. I don't think we find morality in the scriptures. I think we find morality in common sense and conversation and debates, dialogues, diplomacy. That I think this is where we find. And morality, I don't believe.
No, I'm not talking about finding morality. I'm talking about like our sense of morality is enriched in part by like these stories, these divinely revealed stories, right?
That I agree with.
Maybe that's speaking to more of the moral aspect, you know, of ourselves and our ability to appreciate that. Where like the other types of knowledge you're talking about, you know, knowledge of like how the world works and whatnot, that you can go to something else to find, you know, superior method for that.
No, I appreciate that, Eamon, and thanks for clarifying that, because that I agree with. I agree. First of all, yes, I think first there's sort of a premise in what we're saying here that morality is a high point, like it's something we ought to achieve, right? And the question is, where do we find it? Where do we look for it? And yes, I agree with you. We can find inspiration in the archetypes of the scriptures, because like they do try to write stories about certain events that I think, you know, are stories for inspiration. Really, I don't think the scriptures were ever made really to be the final truth. I think we're sort of misinterpreting it sometimes when we think that it's there to give you the certainty. I don't believe in that, but I think it's there to inspire. And you're right, like to give inspiration and for people to use their own common sense, right? The golden rule is like, for me, that's common sense and the golden rule. It goes hand in hand, if you ask me, right? It's just, why would it not be common sense that
No, sorry, I didn't mean to go.
So why would it not be common sense to treat others in the same way as you want to be treated? Why would it not be common sense that you would try to reach some principles that we can live by? But by law, land is created. By law, nations are created, right? But why, like this? I think this is very, like, it's common sense that.
Because I doubt other people exist, so how can I trust others if I want to be treated if I don't know other people exist?
Can I say something? Have you ever read the Glorious Quran? Because it seems to me like it is a large language data set, and that it's line by line, just like Gestalts. Like it says the throats. Then the next line says the day when you shall be called out. So it's like giving concepts. It's like a book on concepts, or a group of people learning concepts. I'm not impressed. I'm just not impressed with the Glorious Quran. To me, it's a very boring and stupid book, but you know, Cynic Mikhail worships it as the all or nothing book of the best books of all times.
Oh no, where did you go?
Well, Amen. I appreciate talking with you, brother, and hope to see you in another room, but I'm going to leave this space. You guys take care.
Yeah, I want to ask you something. I just want to know, why should
I worship the earth? If you're a pantheist, why should I worship the earth? Why should you worship what? The universe. Why should I worship the universe? I mean, but I never asked you to worship the universe. The question doesn't make sense to me. I'm sorry. Oh, okay. I assume that the pantheist, you would hold some opposition, you should worship the universe. Like when you say, I mean, when you say that you're a pantheist, what do you mean by that? Right. Okay. Thank you for asking that. So
They kicked me. I was just writing in a new sentence, but unfortunately they kicked me before I could get it in. So we'll go back to Sam. Ooh, did Sam's house ended? Damn. Sam must have gone to sleep.
Actually, here is like, hey, I don't know much about this, man. Tell me about it. I just don't know why you can't say that instead of kind of like.
Welcome back to another low IQ room starring Caveman, a stupid Muslim atheist who will waste all your time, my man, talking about nothing, my man. He's living in Egypt. He's a low IQ piece of shit, stupid person who comes on here. And what is all this stupid shit? Bitcoin is obviously not a scam because Taylor Moon tells you so, and it's worth $200 billion. It's not stupid. So, anyways, I want to let you all know that you are back on another episode of Low IQ Stupid People. The game continues.
Ever come in that room, my man, I am literally gonna just fill it out. Okay. Hey, yo, Edmund, look up at the top right corner of your screen.
Fatty Jazzy kicked me. It's very sensitive, very delicate right now. Doesn't like getting roasted.
Here begot Abram, Nabor, and Haran. And Haran begot Lot. And Haran died before his father Terah in the land of his nativity, in Ur of the Chaldees.
Okay, so that's the land of his nativity. It would be the same place that Abram, would be his land, Ur of the Chaldees.
Correct.
Go ahead.
So that's what I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay.
I test time. She no answer. I don't care. Now, so I go another room. And why I don't see your room enter? When
What is the deal with all this fucking shit? All these people are scam liars. Expose them, Big Daddy. Let all the liars and the scammers burn them all in hell's daddy.
Message me if I block you. Like, I don't get it. I block you and you still message me.
I said someone blocked me in your room. I messaged you. Someone blocked me in your room. Why don't you announce? If you say another person, I message you. You go announce it. Someone blocked. You go close the room. You go open another room. Yes, all those people shouldn't get to bed. Shouldn't get to bed.
It's not my room. It is not my room. Get your facts right. It is not my
Yeah, get your facts right. Don't accuse her of being at her room. Fucking shit. All these people are scam liars. Daddy, cook them all, Big Daddy. They kicked me. That was my first intervention into a Nigerian debate room. I don't think they were really prepared for what I had to say, but so that's life.
Trying too hard. And your boy don't left you, so you don't left for here to fence for yourself.
And that's what I understand. I don't understand if this dude around me, this is the law to Israel. How was any of this to take?
I'm gonna have to just take all the napkins, just take that whole dispenser and walk out with it.
That's it, right? Just like take the it's like taking the UNICEF box from the corner store. Be like, it's mine.
I got a bunch of old cheap clothes.
March Times.
Well, yeah, they do have that box with the change in it for Ronald McDonald.
Yeah, give me that box. That's what I meant. I couldn't say. I didn't know what it was for, but yeah, UNICEF. I was a little off there.
Allahu Akbar. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah. It's time to prayer, Habibi.